The clerk is supposed to have it was all at once. How do we work that out?
All right, well, good evening, everyone. It's 6 o'clock on Monday, so we've got a work session scheduled to discuss the vehicle replacement policy. Everybody's got a place and they're in it, so we'll go ahead and get started. I believe we've got Brian presenting on this.
Do we normally go to the podium or on the work session?
Yeah, please. Yeah, that's turned
Turned
around.
around the other way.
They might have done that. We've got presentations this evening.
Yeah, we did things a little differently tonight.
Backward.
Pre-vetting.
Just keeping things interesting for the people that watch on video. Thank you, sir.
Okay, what I've passed out this evening is actually just a list of the public works equipment, and that's for operations, wastewater, and water treatment. I kind of want to give you a feel for the number of pieces of equipment, the age of the equipment, and the approximate cost for replacement of the equipment. And as we go through a vehicle replacement policy or program and see if that's something the council would like to establish, wanted to give you a feel for what some of the other communities do. And one of the council members actually asked for we surveyed 15 communities, but we only received responses from 5. And so those are the 5 that we listed. It seems pretty standard across the cities that we did talk to that it depends, it's a combination of mileage and age. And on the discussion form that you received, we did talk about the difference between the fleet vehicles and personal vehicles. Fleet vehicles do have a lot tougher life in general than a personal vehicle. And when you look at just the public works equipment and vehicles themselves, you'll see at the bottom of the second page of the handout I just gave you, tremendous amount of money. We're talking a little over $2.8 million equipment cost in today's value. So what this is just a discussion tonight to try to see if there's consensus about going forward with a vehicle and equipment replacement program for all departments, Parks and Rec, Police, and Public Works, to try to bring down the cost per year. Right now, it's, I think for most equipment, we put off as long as we can, but then there may be some years in the budget we have a huge expense when we have to replace equipment. So what this is presents a schedule for Public Works as well as Parks and Rec and Police for when we would typically like to see vehicles replaced. And so when you look at the handout, we say 10 years / 100,000 miles. We typically would go with 10 years or 100,000 miles. It's something that some of the vehicles may only get 7,000, 8,000, 9,000 miles a year, but that's pretty tough mileage. And so it was just a starting point for discussion tonight, quite honestly. So.
Brian, I have one quick question.
Sure.
Just in the summaries that you shared with us, the one thing that was a big variation was Lawrence's point system. And
Right.
did they give you a kind of a synopsis of what that entailed and how it's different, or is it kind of based off the same sort of structure? They just assign points?
There's actually a lot of things that go into that.
Mhm.
Replacement cost, what kind of maintenance they've had to do. There's a lot of things that rate points that are weighed a certain way.
Did it be something more difficult to manage rather than just having set things in place, or was the point perhaps more efficient when you look at it that way?
Actually, it could be more efficient because Parks and Rec and Public Works and the police keep actually very good maintenance records.
Mm-hmm.
So we know when those costs start to go up. That's something that could definitely be factored in.
Sure. And the reason I ask that is, if the point system, and I would assume the point system is based on the vehicle, per vehicle with the point system, so it allows maybe for something to stay in use longer if it's actually has a maintenance history that shows that it actually could provide us a little bit longer life, rather than a plan that maybe says after 8 years we need to start looking at replacement, and then you come in and say, maybe it goes longer, maybe it doesn't type scenario.
That's correct, and we actually have several pieces of equipment, one out at the wastewater plant, that gets very limited usage, and it's actually quite old, but it functions just fine.
Right.
It's included on here, and it was shown as a replacement cost, but as we go through and if the council recommends we move forward with this, that's something that we will look at in more depth. Like some of those don't need to be replaced.
Sure.
So would the intent of this vehicle replacement policy be more from a budgeting perspective to say, okay, here's what we have, but then as we get close to the actual approval, I guess, we could pull things off? Is that the intent of having this policy?
Yeah, the intent is to basically to define what all the equipment is that we have that needs to be replaced.
Mm-hmm.
And then we talk about a VERP fund. It's a fund that could be set up to actually, that each department would contribute.
Mhm.
And then so when we do need to purchase equipment, we could pull out of that fund. But it's trying to get a schedule, so like, we say in there that 1 year we don't come to you with $1 million worth of equipment, and the next year we come to you with nothing. We want to try to stagger that in a way that makes sense.
Was the VERP fund something that the cities that replied had set in place in their budgets, or is that something?
Well, actually, the VERP fund came from the city of Raymore, and that's what we used.
Okay.
So, and it worked really well. And you notice on there, the city of Raymore on the first page, it just has years.
Right.
Mhm.
And they held to that, I mean, amazingly tight. When we had the downturn, we pushed things back 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
But quite honestly, I mean, we replaced a truck in 2013, a pickup truck that had about 40,000 miles on it, because that's what the schedule said to do. So, I mean, I don't recommend that.
You don't want to be a slave to the
Right.
schedule, right?
Yeah. Hey, Brian, I've got a question about, I'm very interested in the point system with Lawrence. I'd like to know how they balance their use, I'm assuming there's a sliding scale involved with the use versus mileage versus age of the hardware. And my question is, really you said that they keep very good records in terms of vehicle maintenance, and
Right.
they understand exactly what stage of the maintenance curve this particular vehicle's in at all times. Is there a plan to put something like that into place for Gardner Public Works vehicles? Because we understand that is, some vehicles do have greater use than others, and some are, go through the ringer. Like, for example, plow season last year, we lost plows.
Right.
And so obviously, if we lose a grade for a plow, for example, on the actual vehicle, well, that obviously it could really hurt the equipment, the vehicle itself. So my question is there, and I don't see anything in the vehicle. Again, this is a replacement program. It's not a maintenance program.
Correct, that is correct.
One's operational, one's capital. But do we have any idea of what it would take from an operational perspective to get a maintenance program in place so that we have a good idea of what stage each of those pieces of equipment is in?
I wouldn't think it would actually take much at all. I mean, we have a very good maintenance program already. We have a mechanic out at the shop that does do a lot of our maintenance. They keep very good records of what that is and what the cost is associated with that. So going to that next step and putting into at what point is the cost of the maintenance and the age of the vehicle outweigh what the replacement cost is, that would be fairly easy, I think, to move forward with.
I mean, I understand the whole issue of we want to make sure that things don't break down,
Right.
and then we have to replace it in a not coordinated